To order, committee meeting to order. Can I have a roll call, please?
Van Hoff.
Present.
Sullivan. Kunkel. Sager. Campbell. Here. Shorten.
Here.
Althoff.
Here. Can I have a motion to allow Brian in? Ms. Campbell, seconded by Mr. Shorten. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Welcome, Brian. I think you're on mute too, just so you know. We couldn't hear your aye.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you. First item on the agenda is the approval of the minutes. Ms. Campbell, seconded by Mr. Shorten. Any revisions, changes, discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, nay.
Aye.
Thank you. I don't believe that there's any public comment the last time.
There was none?
Okay, no public comment. Member comments this morning. Brian, any comment?
No, thank you. No, thank you.
Thank you, sir. I was going to welcome the new members, but none of you are new, so I'm not welcoming you. And in this morning's special meeting, we have a legislative update. And every year, as you know, we invite our legislators that cover McHenry County, ask them to come and talk about what's occurred, what's on their legislative agenda for the 2025 spring session. And then also we share with them a copy of our legislative agenda, just so they're aware of what's important to McHenry County at this particular time. So may I invite the senators up first, Senator Wilcox, and then Carolyn Campbell, who represents Senator DeWitt. I don't know, do we have anybody on Zoom? We can take that all the time. What did I say?
Campbell.
Campbell. Oh, Carolyn's good too. Sorry.
You know what, I was right along with you too.
Well, they're both blonde. What can I tell you?
We used to be like same district.
And I don't know if you've got anybody who's called in on Zoom yet. Senator DeWitt and Senator Severson both did indicate that they would make the attempt, but both of them have other previous commitments. So Senator Wilcox, you actually cover most of McHenry, so it's nice to have you here this morning. Thank you very much for making the time, and you probably will be the spotlight focus speaker. So I think probably what I'd like to do is if you want to give kind of a summary of what's going on in Springfield, and let us know, and then if there's specific legislation that you're aware of from McHenry County or from yourself, sir, that you want us to help you support or at least educate people about what's going on. And then we will just hand you our legislative agenda, which hasn't changed very much. Some stuff on solar maybe we'll explain, but that's about it. So,
Okay.
sir, the floor is yours.
Sure. So we obviously just got done with lame duck session. It wasn't as impactful as the previous 2 years have been, but there was some interesting work. The hemp bill that the Senate had passed last spring was modified slightly and caused some consternation in the House, and it ultimately did not pass. But the way that bill looked compared to what the Senate had passed, we had banned Delta 8, but had not precluded other retailers from carrying hemp-based products, CBD and everything. This was a complete ban and force into the cannabis industry, and that caused some consternation. House Bill 1 has now been filed. It is the new hemp bill. I don't know what's in it, but that obviously will be a discussion point going forward with the next General Assembly. For myself, probably the largest goal we'll have is bringing what's going to be named Mary Ann's Law. It deals with deaths that appear to be suicides, but it would require a legislative finding that if there's a history of domestic violence, that it immediately be considered a suspicious death. And this comes from a group called Alliance for Hope that has identified a significant number of suicide rulings throughout the country that likely were domestic abuser homicides. And they have 10 red flags to help identify. We've chatted a little bit about it locally with the McHenry County Death Protocol structure and how detectives arrive on scene. I'm comfortable that we don't have any like that, but around the state, not so comfortable. So that would be one big push. The most impactful is probably going to be the budget. Projections are about 3.5 billion underfunded right now at the moment. If you look at history, LGDF is a popular place. So if you want to prepare to start Pritzker-proofing your next couple of years, look at what that means if there is no LGDF distributed from the state. That's 2.3 billion. It's money that the state already collects. They already have their hands on it. And it would be very easy and very maybe politically savvy to do because most constituents wouldn't see it. You learned a lesson with the removal of the grocery tax and making the locals the bad people. I expect that to be one of the big aspects of where new revenue comes. Whether he looks to take the whole 2.3, if he does, then he might offer a constitutional amendment that would give municipalities the ability to raise their own income tax, which I'm not going to say whether I think most municipalities would appreciate that or not, but I'm sure there are some that would be willing to. If that comes out, I would recommend that all of our municipalities make a determination, are they a wealthy municipality or not? Because this could be a death spiral to anyone who can't significantly raise income taxes, and it becomes competition amongst municipalities that doesn't exist today, which I think benefits the state. So that would be probably my biggest warning as we go into the governor's budget address in February to hear what's going on. I have 3 or 4 other areas that I have a concern on where the state may look for additional money but not prepared to bring those up. But this is the biggest one that affects this committee and the municipalities.
Do you anticipate any reductions in expenditures at all being proposed?
I have a whole list of what I would hope that get proposed. The $1 billion a year on illegals certainly is a high priority. The number of increased spending programs that have occurred through the COVID federal dollar years are a prime aspect to be possibly rolled back. But that's difficult. Once the government starts spending, we don't exactly do significant cuts very often.
Thank you. Does anyone have any questions or comments? We're having a little bit of technical difficulty with
Just sent them new links.
new links. Okay, with both Senator Severson and Senator DeWitt. So we'll wait a minute. I truly appreciate that. I am also extraordinarily concerned with that LGDF. And I would guarantee it may not be all, but I agree with you. I think something, probably a larger portion than we're used to, will be withheld. Yeah, to try and balance that budget. We also have, I'm looking for Alicia, do we have a copy of our agenda for the senator to take with him? I know it's in draft form right now, but no, we'll just follow up later?
Yes.
Okay, we'll follow up later with ours.
Unfunded mandates on there.
It's
so
the same, it's very similar to anything that you've seen when you served on the board as well as being a senator. The only new issue I will talk about a little bit so that you're cued is that ISACO, and I served on the task force as a member of McHenry, solar farms. We've got a couple requests with regard, and I know that specifically I was told Senator Severson is now on. Thank you, Senator.
Good morning.
I'm talking a little bit about what ISACO is moving forward with regard to solar farms. Minimally, we're asking for the ability to have the counties be able to, any solar farm that's been approved, to reevaluate every 5 and then again 10 years the cost of decommissioning, because we're assuming that many of these entities may up and move and leave those solar farms in our hands. And the owners, many of them are leased, and I'm going to guess that the owners aren't going to be able to absorb the cost of decommissioning. So that's minimally is what we're asking for, is to protect constituents. But we are also asking for a few other items to give us a little bit more approval on some of those solar farms, because as you know, currently we have no authority whatsoever. We're just, and one of them is if we can't do anything, we'll have a public hearing not associated with the meeting and let everybody understand that we have no authority whatsoever. So,
we have filed a bill to try and get a little bit more local control back on that front. On the decommissioning, with an opportunity in there to increase bond requirements?
yes. Particularly if we discover the cost of, recycling some of those solar panels, or again, the cost of just in general, the decommissioning exceeds what they anticipate, we would like to up the bonds, exactly. So.
If some landowner's gonna make all this money off of it, they're not smart enough to get their own protection, why should that be the county's responsibility?
Precisely because of what you just said. It still is gonna sit there in our backyard, and if nobody takes care of it, it's gonna end up being just like, just like the Lust funds, all of those gas stations, the owners never came forward and cleaned up those sites. It's gonna be a similar situation, I think, with solar farms. Hopefully not, but in the event it does, we still would like that availability.
That's a good idea.
So Senator Wilcox kind of gave us a little bit of his opinion on some of the issues that occurred in 2024 and what's going to happen in 2025, much of it focusing in on the budget and the hemp cannabis situation. Do you have anything to add, Senator Severson, that we should be aware of or that you'd like to talk about?
I think if he covered the budget, that's the biggest thing. Of course, not surprising. We warned about this year after year of overspending, but Pam, you were down there when we've had to make tough decisions. The majority of legislators there have never had to make a cut in their life, and so it's going to be an interesting dynamic of how you try to make close the gap of $3.5 billion. These progressives, I can't imagine, are going to look at cutting spending. So we have to look at what are they going to do with raising taxes, and then getting into that game of payment cycle delay. I would certainly think we're going to be seeing significant amounts of payment cycle delay because, and you can explain it to others, but every one day we don't pay a bill, it's like 175 or 180 million dollars of savings for the state. So you can close the big budget gap by delaying payments by a couple of weeks.
Is that legislation still in place with regard to if we're late, that there's still a percentage of interest that are given? Yes? Senator Wilcox is shaking his head yes.
But they don't pay the interest, and then they tell you, like Les did last time, well, if you want a cash settlement now, we can pay you, but we can't pay the interest. If you agree to take the payment now, waive your interest. So they get a way around that too. So maybe we have to look at some legislation to tighten up that rule that doesn't give the state the ability to negotiate that interest, that requires them to pay the interest. Well, that's going to be a problem for your local vendors, for your local medical providers, for your human service providers. It's going to end up being a significant problem.
I agree. Any questions? Anything that you're working on, Senator Severson, that we should be aware of that you might need some kind of opportunity for us to educate our constituencies about what's going on?
Nothing major or exciting, just some technical stuff regarding insurance and health systems, and so.
No big Medicaid issues or Medicare issues?
No, I mean, we have to, obviously, we're going to be trying to figure out something to do with Medicaid. There isn't a health system in our state that didn't lose significant money last year, whether it's locally, whether it's Northwestern or Mercy or Advocate. The problem is hospitals can't raise their prices. I mean, restaurants, gas stations, they can all raise their prices. Health systems, Medicare is fixed, Medicaid is fixed, private health insurance is negotiated to keep those costs down. So when your costs are going up 15% a year, but your revenue is flat, the end result is significant problems which cause long delays to see a doctor or a specialist. So, and then with a couple 100,000 non-citizens getting free health care, that's just putting more burdens on the health system. So there is going to be some significant issues that our health systems are going to face this year.
Senator DeWitt, are you
Excuse
on?
me.
Yes, I'm here.
Ma'am,
Yes, Brian.
Senator Wilcox kind of gave us a rather frightening, I think, outlook in terms of LGDF. Can you give your perspective on where that is? Certainly, there's been concern about that for many years. There's been variable levels of return of LGDF, but do you have some indication of where you think we might be going with that?
I probably agree with him. I said a lot. Last year was the year to try to get that increased, but it didn't work out. So the state just thinks that they can spend your money better than you can. So they're keeping it. But as I mentioned, so we won't see any increases this year. Question is, will you see a delay in receiving it? And I think the answer to that is going to be yes. It's going to get slowed down.
I'm not quite so concerned with regards to a delay as I am a reduction from what it was last year.
Yeah, I don't think they're going to reduce it this year after all the terrible cuts they've made in the past, plus after what they did with the grocery tax. But
Right.
But the delay, I would anticipate we could start getting into that.
Thank you, Dan.
Don, you may have some other. You're involved in that though closely.
Yeah, first of all, thanks for inviting us in today. I apologize for my technical difficulties here. I tend to take a little more concerned approach to LGDF. I really believe that the grocery tax fiasco that the governor pulled last year was really just kind of a shot across the bow for municipalities to see if he would be able to get away with pulling that money away from municipalities and seeing how many of those municipalities and local governments would re-implement that 1% sales tax. I think he got away with it. And frankly, I do not think that bodes well for LGDF in the coming budget cycle. I believe the governor will be coming after more of the municipal government's LGDF share, if not all of it this year, given their purported $3.2 billion deficit that his own budget office is projecting for the next coming fiscal year. I am cautioning and warning all of my local governments, keep a very close eye on your LGDF revenues, make sure your lobbyists and the people who advocate for you in local government, aside from us on the inside, if you will, make sure that everyone they discuss and talk to are aware, and your legislators, the rest of your legislators across the aisle, if you will, make sure they are aware that any additional reductions in LGDF will not be looked at kindly.
And Senator DeWitt, do you have anything else? I know you want to talk a little bit about mass transit. Is there anything that you are working on specifically? Our legislative agenda has not formally been adopted. Once it is, we will share that with you
Sure.
via email or US mail, whichever is more expedient at the time.
Sure.
However, I know you wanted to talk to us about where we are with the whole consolidation situation as you're intimately engaged with that.
Well, thank you, Madam Chair. Yeah, I've been spending an inordinate amount of time over the last almost year now dealing with this proposed consolidation of the mass transit systems. And I also wanted to take this opportunity to thank McHenry County for being one of the first counties within the Chicago metropolitan area, and obviously an RTA member, to have come out with a resolution about 6 months ago, if I recall, specifically expressing your concerns about some of the changes that they're looking to make. I'm happy to report there were really two priorities that I went into this initial phase of this process with. One was to maintain the service board structure, And I believe, based on what the chairman has told me, he has come to the realization that the service boards will in fact have to remain intact. The CTA board, the Metro board, and the Pace Bus board. I think that's good news. I think he heard from everyone, including Chairman Bueller, who came to testify in front of our multiple hearings we held over the summer, that local governments demand that we keep a voice in that RTA mass transit process. Look at the suburbs generate the vast majority of revenue when you take sales tax revenue and fare box revenue. The suburbs are generating a significant amount of funds to the RTA region. We deserve to maintain input and involvement in how that money gets spent and how the various service boards that pertain to us, particularly Metro and Pace in the suburbs, we need to maintain input and contact into that process. I think he's come over the line on that. The other major issue is we need to maintain the majority vote rules that currently exist within the RTA board operating rules. There are some issues on the RTA that require a 66% majority, and there are some issues by statute that require a 75% majority in order to be passed. Most of the financial issues, any debt issues, expenditures, all require 75% vote of the RTA board to pass. Interestingly enough, I was fortunate to participate in the delegation that went to Germany earlier in December. Their oversight boards require 100% approval of every board member in order to move any initiative forward. And I don't think, whatever form this new RTA or MMA board takes, I don't think any of those people are going to want to have to do business with 100% majority vote required for any action that they choose to take. We all agree the RTA needs to be empowered and have control over those three service boards, but those three service boards need to remain intact, and those majority vote rules need to remain in effect as well.
Can I ask a terribly inappropriate political question? I mean,
depends who you're asking.
Obviously, there's a huge need in Cook County. I mean, we all understand that there's heavy usage there, and there's also heavy debt there. Politically, what do you think that balance is going to be between the suburban area and city and county of Cook?
Chairman, Madam Chair, when you say balance, what are you defining that as?
I guess legislatively, as you guys move forward, as the General Assembly moves forward and deals with this issue, how do you think that's going to fall in the General Assembly itself, noting that over 1/3 of each of those chambers is represented by people who obviously have a vested interest in maybe different structure and different revenue split?
Sure. No, I understand your question. There's been a lot of discussion about, particularly coming out of the Chicago membership of the legislature, both on the House and Senate side, about them wanting major changes in oversight in order to go along with any potential revenue increases that are clearly required, not only to avoid this fiscal cliff coming up next year or 26, but continuing revenues into the future. A lot of people want to see a change in leadership at the CTA. If you either read about or saw the press conference with the mayor and President Dorval Carter on Friday, you will see that they are attached at the hip, both personally and politically. It is going to be interesting to see if the suburban legislative members are going to be able to outweigh the city legislative members when it comes to, forcing a decision regarding management of the CTA. Everybody wants to talk about problems with the RTA and the mass transit system, but when you talk to the legislators in the city, all they want to talk about is problems at the CTA. Metra and Pace are certainly doing a much better job, I believe, operating their mass transit systems or their piece of the mass transit system in the metropolitan region. So, Madam Chair, I think you're absolutely right. I think there really is going to be a hard conversation and a debate between the suburban members who want to maintain suburban control and input into the process and city members of the legislature who really just want to see a change at CTA. And then, of course, the elephant in the room is what do we do with, no pun intended, what do we do with that $5 billion of debt that the CTA has run up over the course of the last 10 or 12 years? $2 billion in unfunded pension liability and about $3 billion in just operating debt that they've run up because of revenue concerns. They haven't adjusted their fares since 2018. And prior to that, they hadn't adjusted their fares. The last one prior to that was 2009. Clearly, they have to come to the reality that they're going to need to make some major changes, like the other boards are going to have to make in order to meet this fiscal cliff that we're all looking at in 2026. I hope that kind of covers your question.
It does.
So, Don, wouldn't you agree when we say suburban, Collier County legislators were all pretty similar in the support they had against those significant changes? But didn't you get a feel that even many suburban Cook legislators seem to be leaning towards the direction of maintaining that vote majority that we were talking about?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I think we have been very fortunate and we've worked very hard to make sure all of the Collier County boards and Collier County legislators are aware of what's actually being proposed here. And Senator Wilcox, you're right. Even the suburban Cook County members are understanding the importance of maintaining the balance between city representation and suburban representation.
What's the headline? I saw the headlines about CTA announcing that big extension going south for $5 billion. Does that impact that at all?
It shouldn't. The CTA has received significant federal assistance, upwards of $1 billion as recently as last week, in order to help fund that $5 billion red line extension to 135th Street. That has been President Dorval Carter's dream project since he became chairman of the CTA. He almost broke into tears discussing the project because it's finally coming to fruition, and he's able to claim he's able to prove he's been able to get that project done. So they have received significant federal dollars to help get that project done. Again, one of the ironies of this whole RTA system, why didn't that money come through the RTA instead of going directly to CTA? A lot of people are asking that question. It kind of throws off the whole equation of making sure all of the mass transit agencies are funded on a balanced basis. It's, I guess, to everyone's good fortune, and certainly the CTA's good fortune, federal money is going to be a big part of helping to make sure that project gets paid for.
Well, the newspaper article said that the officials signed an agreement for $2 billion of federal money towards the $5.75 million project. That sounds like only $2 billion is guaranteed out of almost $6 billion project.
Yeah, and I believe they are. I believe they are going to be doing some sort of TIF financing in order to help make the cities match with regards to revenues to help finish the rest of that project. I really think the impetus to them signing that agreement last week, I think they really wanted to try to get ahead of any potential risk that might be associated with any of that federal money drying up once the administration changes next Monday. They really wanted to get it on paper and make sure the funding was committed to the project.
Got it.
Chairwoman, this is Brian.
Yeah, thanks, Brian. Go ahead, please.
Thank you. Senator DeWitt, I want to first say thank you so very, very much for your extremely strong approach to this, your hard work. Very, very grateful for the fact that you were part of the legislative team that went to Germany. I think that was fantastic. And we know that you've done a lot in terms of leadership and in transit. So thank you in that regard. There has been a lot of effort on behalf of COGS and county boards in the region, particularly the suburban regions, in which we are trying very much to support the tenants, which you have already identified. Glad to hear that you believe that those things are somewhat secure. The question really is derived from our efforts that are forthcoming in terms of lobbying down in Springfield. We will be considering just later in this particular meeting our lobbying effort stance and standards and summary report that we want to forward. To what degree do you believe that a strong lobbying effort in this early spring session is going to be beneficial to cementing, if you will, or securing the tenants that you've outlined?
Well, Brian, first of all, thank you for those kind words. And in answer to your question, I think any outside lobbying influence that can be stacked onto any internal lobbying. You know, it's one thing if me or Senator Wilcox or Severson or any other Republican work our Democratic partners across the aisle for specific ideas and positions. That's one thing. But I do believe that any outside influence, particularly by, such a strong group of lobbyists that I know McHenry County employs, and certainly a lot of other municipalities in Cox tend to employ, these people have a significant amount of influence with other legislators. And I think, good, bad, or indifferently, the lobby, or the third house as it's called in Springfield, the legislature pays a lot of attention to the positions that the third house takes on any given assortment of issues. So from that standpoint, the lobbyists have a much easier job getting into other legislators' offices to convince them that, the positions that we and they may be advocating for are really the positions being advocated by the hundreds of thousands of people that all these county boards and COGS and elected officials all represent. So my motto, Brian, is the more the merrier. And the more people that are preaching or singing off the same sheet of music in order to make hard decisions about significant issues like mass transit, I say bury them. I say just pound them with the same message across the board. Let them hear it from every single direction, and then hold them accountable. Hold them accountable to the positions that they claim they're making. I mean, how many legislators have you heard say, yes, we support LGDF and we support local government, and then they turn around and vote for the governor's budget every single year?
Right.
I have messaged to my fellow legislators, either support LGDF or don't support LGDF. And you guys are the ones that can hold them accountable. I don't think this is any different. I don't think this is any different, Brian.
Appreciate it so much. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Any other questions before I let the senators go and call up our representatives? Gentlemen, thank you very much for your time this morning. We really appreciate the information that you've given us and for taking time out of your schedules to be here today. So much appreciated. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
All right. Thank you,
We'll
ma'am.
stay in touch. Can we have our representatives join us up at the table? And, I will tell you, having served 17 years in Springfield, if you think that what occurs in the Senate is duplicated or mirrored in the House, you have another story coming.
Look at the hemp bill.
It's nice to have you all here this morning. I think you guys know Representative Reich and Representative Weber. We also have Representative Sosnowski's legislative aide with us this morning. Thank you very much for making the trek all the way to McHenry County. We appreciate that. So I'm going to turn it over to you. You heard, we'll send you our legislative agenda once it's actually formally approved. If there's anything that you're working on that we should know about, we would like that information. And then if you can just kind of give us a brief rundown summary of what you all observed when you were in Springfield and what happened in the House and what's moving forward. I would ask both of you to comment on the new unofficial, unwritten rule about the 60 votes as well and how that ultimately may affect legislation moving forward. So, Mr. Representative Weber, would you like to go first?
There was a lot of stuff that we heard was coming during lame duck session, but we didn't hear. You know, one of the things that was we expected to see was the assisted suicide. That was something my office got a lot of calls on. That did not come up. The hemp bill did not come up. You know, we thought there was going to be some discussion on the $3.5 billion budget shortfall, but we did not have some of that. There was a lot of random bills came through, speeding up the process to allow principals to unionize, name change bills for, you know, one of the issues I had was why is there such an urgency for undocumented people in our state to be able to change their name quickly and to remove that process from posting in the newspapers. It seemed like an odd time to do that without a lot of discussion. So as far as that goes, I think hopefully moving forward on the, you know, we're spending billions of dollars obviously on the illegals that are coming into our state. At the same time, we have this big budget shortfall. And if you read some articles, forecasting the out-migration of Illinois residents out of our state, some of the articles and projections I have seen is that by the census in 2030, we'd be expected to lose an additional 2 congressional seats due to out-migration. So, you know, there's a lot of issues we're gonna need to talk about. Obviously tightening the budget, protecting LGDF, and you know, personally, I would like to see some property tax reform. It seems like it was just yesterday, but 2019, the governor's task force on property tax relief, that basically, I don't think a single recommendation came out of that task force. I would like to continue that discussion on reforming how we do our property taxes here in the state of Illinois. I have too often I get calls where people's property taxes are fluctuating. You know, my evaluation went up 40, my tax bill went up, you know, 30%, 50%. So I think there's some things we could do better to honor the people of Illinois on our property tax system.
Our treasurer, as well as our assessment supervisor, does excellent informational seminars on how your property tax works. So if you ever have a need for that, they really have it down to a science. It's well done, easy to understand. Doesn't mean that people accept it, but at least they have a better understanding of exactly how that whole process works. Right. So I offer that to you guys. Can you touch real briefly about the 60 vote rule that now is in place in the House, even though it's not really a rule? I think it's important.
It's basically what you're talking about is that the speaker will not let a bill go into or through committee and to the floor unless it's guaranteed to have 60 Democrat votes on it. Which means that anything that we provide or we propose on the Republican side has to exceed a threshold that is, or meet a threshold that is absolutely unable to be met unless it conforms to their idea of what is important legislation. And they do a real good job of ignoring the real problems that cost us a lot of money in the state. There are a couple things that have popped up in the last, shall we say, month that, aside from the budget, you folks are facing a mental health funding shortage because of a miscalculation of the anticipated tax revenues that are going to flow from the sales tax that we put up. The question is, how much is mental health funding going to be affected by the budget problems that we're having in Springfield this year? I am becoming much more involved in just, if not talking about, but trying to form positions on where we're going to go in order to maintain mental health funding here in McHenry County. That's something that I'm going to ask the county board and our county officials to take the lead on, to telling us how they see being able to do it, and anything we can do at the state level to help with mental health funding. I'm more than willing to help you with.
Can I stop you there and ask a question? Do you see Senator Wilcox had alluded to the fact that LGDF would be diverted and or delayed? Do you see that happening with sales tax revenue as well, which is obviously something that would affect our mental health funding?
I think we have a comptroller who is beating the drum on making sure that we have prompt payment as best we can. And I think we have a governor who is absolutely paranoid about maintaining our bond rating in the market. So I think that's going to work as a means of limiting any kind of pressures to stop payments to vendors and things like that, or to delay payments to vendors. That'll help. I don't think it's going to stop it.
What about, I don't consider us a vendor.
No.
So what about, I
understand.
know. So my question is do you see the possibility of if there is a delay to LGDF, if there is a diversion of LGDF, I know they can't divert our sales tax revenue, but could they delay our receipt of those revenues? Do you see, has that been a discussion about how to deal? No? I
haven't heard anything,
okay.
but that's not to say it's not happening on the second floor, and we haven't heard anything about it. Obviously, we in the super minority, we're like potted plants. We, mushrooms were
Fungi.
kept in the dark and fed fecal matter. So it may be happening, and I wouldn't be surprised. We'll see what happens when the governor gives his budget address in February. But I don't discount the possibility of that happening.
Well, you know that we just passed a major referendum giving sales tax dollars to mental health. Any delay would be a significant issue to McHenry County with regard to
this past we had a Rotary meeting this week, and in our program this week was one of the vendors who deals with mental health issues here in McHenry County, and she was very plain on the fact that this is going to really leave a mark with their agency.
When was the last time sales tax payments were delayed?
Probably during the Rauner years.
Yeah, when the very first year of Rauner's administration, which is what, 2014?
Something like that.
Yeah.
Getting over to the RTA, I know that Mike has been working really hard on that, and I would encourage him to continue to take the lead on RTA issues. The one thing I noticed in the paper this last weekend is that Deb Conroy, who's the board chairman in DuPage County, is becoming much more vocal on the Collar County's role in RTA matters. And I think that that's something that McHenry County should not piggyback on, but pay close attention to, because Deb, former Democrat legislator in Springfield, carries a lot of weight down there, and she may be able to do things behind the scenes in Springfield that we as more Republican leaning county may not be able to do. So the comments that she's made, I think we ought to pay particularly close attention to and see where we can actually join with her and make some headway with other Brian?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Mr.
Pam,
Sager.
if I could,
Please.
Steve, there has been a significant amount of effort to work in collaboration with DuPage counties and other counties. But most recently, there was a meeting at a broader level with the COGS of DuPage County. And we're pretty much all on the same page. And so the document that we are going to be considering just later in this meeting is actually the document that is also going to be considered by DuPage, COG, and some others to have kind of a unified approach by the suburban counties. So I want to put that in so that you're aware that we are significantly outreaching to the other counties. And I want to give Shailen and others kudos in that regard because they're really making an effort to represent us, I think, in a very positive leadership role.
And again, we take for granted that everybody understands. Mr. Sager is our selected representative on the RTA board, which is why he too is very engaged in this entire issue, just for people who may be listening at home or listening later. So we're very fortunate in that we have Brian in that position. And again, Senator DeWitt, who's from the Senate side, as well as all of you gentlemen. And I do know that Chairman Bueller has been making a huge effort to work with the other county boards on this issue.
Yeah, as far as everything else is concerned, you know, we just got inaugurated into the 104th. If anybody heard my comments at the inauguration, you know where I stand on a lot of issues and what my attitude is toward what goes on the other side. But I think that the biggest issues we're going to be facing this year, obviously, is the budget, because everything depends on the budget. And I don't know where they're gonna. I don't know where they're gonna find the tree that the money grows on to fund a $3.2 billion budget deficit, unless it's delaying spending. We may end up back in the same situation we had during Browner years, where, like you said, payments are delayed and all that kind of stuff.
9 months. It's 9
Yeah,
months.
could be. Personally, as far as my agenda for this General Assembly is concerned, my priorities are somewhat narrow. Child welfare is still my major concern down there. I'm a member of the Adoption and Child Welfare Committee. I'm the spokes on that. And I'm trying to find a way to peel wraparound services out of DCFS and into something where families can avail themselves of wraparound services that will keep them out of the child welfare system by ameliorating some of the problems they have before a hotline call is made and before we have DCFS get its hands on a family and making decisions that are often somewhat ill-advised. Pensions, I'm the spokes on the Pension and Personnel and Pensions Committee as well. It's no secret, we pay $20 billion a year right off the top to fund our pensions. All the money that the state pays into pensions, none of it goes to Tier 2. Tier 2 employees are paying their own freight as far as pension is concerned. The $20 billion or so that the state pays into the pension funds is to fund the Edgar ramp, and we're not catching up. The debt is continuing to increase. Tier 2 is becoming an issue that a bigger issue, and my fear is that we're not going to solve what is called the safe harbor problem, that the IRS has not given us any guidance on what will happen if we fail safe harbor. And if that is in fact the case, any kind of financial impact that would come from having to enforce the safe harbor is going to fall on local governments. It's not going to fall on the state.
And that is significant again for McHenry County.
Significant.
The percentages of what we would have to pay, yeah.
I got a letter from, I can't remember who I got the letter from, but if the tier two, if the current bill that is being considered by the House is passed, the cost to just to fund the pensions of our correctional officers here in McHenry County is going to be an increase of somewhat close to $2 million a year.
That was from Chairman Bueller, and I don't know, Representative Weber, if you got a copy of that, but we'll make sure you get it as well. But you're absolutely correct, it's close to $2 million.
Yeah.
Annually, not annually.
Yeah, and I have told my colleagues, I would like letters from your county governments. One, give me ammunition here that I can go and just say this is going to cost. Because somewhere along the line, the Democrats seem to think, again, there's a tree out there that the money grows on, and they're not going to we're not going to have to pay a financial cost to bringing Tier 2 into compliance with Safe Harbor.
Is a letter better or is a resolution better? If we do something, is it better for you guys to have that, or does a letter suffice?
The letters are strong. A resolution from the county board as to the impact of HB 5909, which is the one that we're talking about right now. A resolution would be something that I could hold up on the floor and say, hey, look, this is just one small county in Illinois, well, not small, but one county in Illinois that's going to be affected this much by this bill. I have my own ideas about pension reform. They're not gaining traction because they have a tendency to be a little bit draconian. One bill I am going to file, it's in the drafting right now, is a bill to allow subsidiary governments, municipalities, pension funds, and political units, not the state, to do what Michigan allowed Detroit to do, and that's file bankruptcy. I'm not saying that we should be able to file bankruptcy right away, or we should, but I think having that arrow in the quiver before the bottom falls out is a great thing to have, and it may focus people's attention on true reform. The city of Chicago, the city pension funds in the city of Chicago are absolutely are going broker by the day. And we have to face the reality that somewhere along the line, we don't have the money to pay for it. It's going to have to come out of everybody's pocket if we're going to fix this mess.
Does Representative Sosnowski have anything, or are you just here to listen to the comments that are?
But I was just sitting here thinking that one of the perks of going last is everyone's covered all the budgets and the undocumented and all of those things. And I was messaging with him about the solar farms when you brought that up earlier, and he'd like to see some of that come back to the county. So that's something, we get a lot of those calls as well. Some of his major focus for this year, and hopefully we can get bills out of rules this year, is regarding property taxes. That's a big conversation we have. As we represent parts of Winnebago, Boone, and a big chunk of McHenry, we see it across all the counties and everyone's feeling it. So those are kind of his main focuses. The budget is, the $3.2 billion deficit is a concern for everyone. And he's part of the revenue and all of that. So those are really going to be the main focuses for him. So.
I will tell you that I will be reaching out to all of you after the budget address to get some, feedback from all of you as to what you heard and what you think that's going to look like, just because I think we'll have a better, ammunition at that particular time. So again, I don't want to keep you here any longer. I promised I'd do 30 minutes, and as you can see, the rest of my agenda's coming in. So in closing, do you have anything that you would like to leave with us, or do you think you've covered it all? I have to say thank you. You guys are so good during the actual session time of always being available, accessible, providing us with information, working with us. I know I speak for McCog as well, saying all of those things. So again, we just really, really appreciate your presence here today, and that communication that you allow us to have with you is just remarkable.
Well, one thing I would say is that this county, our COGs, you guys, you are some of the most ambitious, and you spend more time down in Springfield and keeping in touch with us than a lot of different counties. Because I talked to my legislative colleagues, and you guys are squeaky wheels, and I would ask and demand that you continue being that.
I'm gonna ask for a little bit of latitude here. I'm sorry, what?
I'd just like to make a comment.
Sure.
Before we close.
Okay. David, did you want to make a statement about some of the stuff that you're dealing with on McHenry County's back between the federal, the state government, and some of the issues? Real briefly. You know, like 4 sentences or something, just to, we have our legislators here, you can kind of take advantage of that a little bit.
I appreciate that, Pam, and
You wouldn't put your coat on, I would have forgotten.
We've met with some challenges, working with state agencies, and most notably for me, IEMA. They proposed some draconian mandates on us through the administrative rule, and Representative Reich, you've been very helpful in helping us through the process. We met with them in January, February of last year. We thought we had an agreement, and in December, right at Christmas time, they said, "Oh, we got the changes for you," and very little change. McHenry County could struggle through that to maintain an emergency management agency, to be prepared, to have our communities prepared. But my colleagues with, a single coordinator or a volunteer coordinator, that mountain is too high. And my fear is we can't do it, or we can't do part of it. We're not going to do any of it. And that leaves our citizens at a loss. You're watching the coverage from California. You've seen the coverage from the hurricanes. You've seen the coverage from, what happened with Helene. It's important that we are prepared and our community is prepared. But if we make these draconian, mandates and we thought we had an agreement, and they spent a year, they being IEMA spent a year hammering it out, and then they came back, and it was very similar to what we originally saw. There has to be more of a partnership instead of this wall, and that's all I'm looking for. Let's talk this out, let's work this out, and that's one of them. The other thing, I was at a conference in Colorado, and I listened to those at FEMA who are the decision makers. And I hear different words coming out of them about what their requirements are for grants and for programs. And Illinois, what I hear from my colleagues at FEMA in the hallowed halls there is Illinois always goes over the top. They press it too hard. If we have to have a score of 10 to qualify for a grant, Illinois wants 11. It just makes it a real challenge. We struggle through in McHenry County. I have colleagues in the collar counties. We band together, work together to try to make it happen, but we have more staff than our other colleagues. The interesting, I was in one session with the guy from FEMA who's in charge of mitigation grants, and he told me 3 things, and I won't bore you with all the details, but he told me 3 things which were somewhat contrary to what Illinois told me was a grant requirement. I didn't realize the director of IEMA was sitting behind me. And it was as if she had heard it for the first time. And she's made some action. I have a meeting that I got to run to talk with them, because one of them was a safe room. We've tried to have a safe room put in out at DOT for years, and we've been denied. We've been challenged and what have you, and FEMA won't accept it. That's what we heard. What I heard from the gentleman who was in charge of mitigation grants and BRIC grants for all of FEMA said is, the safe room hits FEMA's doors, it's almost 100% funded. 100% the funding flows. It's a 75-25 share. It's very contrary to what I heard from my state, right? So all I'm looking for is a partnership, and let's work together, and let's not make it harder than it has to be.
And I'm going to ask and tell you, I'm looking for a partnership. I would ask that you continue to work with our elected representatives and help them intervene with the state so that there is documentation of your communications and the efforts that McHenry County has made, and see if we can't fix this.
Question.
Yeah.
Is it possible that Illinois is getting all the money it should get, but it isn't flowing down to the locals?
They have to apply for it. EMPG, Emergency Management Performance Grant, they're doing a holdback on that more than they did before. They're not required to give that to the locals. They have historically. I lost $25,000 to $50,000 a year in EMPG, and the state's holding that back. IEM is holding that back now.
I think it's mostly staff, and you have a lot of inexperienced individuals who are currently serving in that particular agency, and so, you know, maybe there's a way to fix it.
Yeah.
You know, and it's just communication.
Yeah.
So I would just ask that, David, you continue to work with our elected reps and.
I will tell you this, that I know what it's like, you know, to call mom and dad and get them in on it, right? And that would be to call you, and then for you to call them. I know the price I pay when one of you reach out, right? So I do, and my staff does, in the collar counties, we do everything we can to work directly with IEMA. Sometimes we just get to an impasse. We just get to the point where we can't go any further.
And I just think it would be nice for them to engage, and I would never ask them to intervene without you being in the room, so everybody's in the room together, right?
Yeah,
So
definitely.
and if it can be fixed, it's good for everybody. I'm not criticizing, I just think that there's a lot of miscommunication and a misunderstanding. You heard that yourself personally.
Yep.
In the room with the feds.
Yep.
So I would just ask that maybe you can help out and get us fixed, okay?
Thank you. I appreciate the time. Oh,
Yeah,
I'm sorry.
Ms. Van Hoff, you wanted to make a comment,
Yes, a couple of
please.
comments. First of all, a lot of beating up on Democrats here. I have to just say that working in long-term care for 18 years, working with a number of agencies, DCFS, DHS, DPH, I was so happy to be working in long-term care during 2020 and 2021 and having Governor Pritzker in charge, because it made such a difference in the personal protective equipment that we were able to get, a shipment that we got in that really made a difference in Illinois for the agency that I was working at. We were able to take some really proactive steps, and we're surrounded by long-term care agencies that had double-digit deaths. At Riverside Foundation, where I worked as administrator, we had 5. We were able to do this because of the proactive steps we took and because of the assistance that we got from the governor. Now, another thing that helped a lot, I realized that we had a lot of money coming in, you know, for COVID relief. We had gone from, you know, waiting 6 months or more to get paid from the state of Illinois to getting paid in 20 days. It was amazing. Our credit for the state of Illinois, we've had 8 credit upgrades. Now, this saves us money. When we're borrowing money, our credit rating has increased tremendously. So I lived through that and worked through that under Governor Rauner, who cut funding for autism on National Autism Day. I don't know how many of you are aware of that. So I just want to point out, being a Democrat in this room, I know how you feel being a Republican in the state of Illinois, downstate, and I feel for you because I go through some of those same things, and I do agree, we have to work together. I know that's difficult because political agendas get in the way. I think we've done a really good job in McHenry County of working together, and I hope to see that continue. The only other comment that I wanted to make was on DCFS. You mentioned Representative Wright that with child care. We had an incident in McHenry County where we had a child returned to a family that should not have been returned to that family. And we have instances where children are taken away from families where they probably could have stayed there. So I just want your idea of how we can best look at DCFS and overhaul that. I mean, I know staffing is an issue, caseloads. Do you have any other ideas that you would like to talk about?
I do, but I'm going to push back on your praise of Governor Pritzker and his reactions during COVID. He governed by disaster declaration and economic and executive orders for 1,150 some days of his first 1,552 days in office. And frankly speaking, what he did as far as COVID and all that stuff, some of it, I supported him early on, I opposed him later on. But one thing he did do was provide cover for a DCFS director who should have been gone 2 years before he was. I think that what we're looking at now, and I'm dealing with this from the standpoint as the minority spokesperson on the Adoption and Child Welfare Committee, and I work very closely with the chair and the other Democrat members of that committee. We speak as one voice. The fact is that there's already a drawing back of the initiatives that the current director has tried to initiate with DCFS, and I think a lot of that is coming from the second floor. I don't think she's being given the kind of latitude that she needs in order to be able to get this agency out of the mess that it's in. DCFS is, like every other state agency, in many ways dysfunctional. But the fact is that it also deals with the issue of dead kids. And whenever a dead kid hits the front page of the newspaper, DCFS has a light shown upon it. We're trying to get that done. My whole hope in the next General Assembly is to find a way for us to get a much bigger allocation of Families First Prevention Services Act money, which then can possibly be administered outside of DCFS because it does not need to be administered by DCFS. I would like to set up a pilot program here in McHenry County where we can actually serve. There's something called the 100% Initiative in New Mexico that I would urge you to take a close look at. There's a book called Anna, Age 8 that I would urge you to read, dealing with the death of a child in New Mexico, and what flowed from that was a statewide effort to localize services, wraparound services as they're called, to allow families to avail themselves of the kind of programs and things that will keep them from going over the edge and committing child abuse or being found guilty of child neglect. And neglect is the biggest reason people call the hotline. We need to find a way to force these expenses outside of DCFS, so the hotline call does not need to be made, but families are getting the kind of services they need in order to take that from a boil down to a simmer, down to something where families can get back on their feet. So yeah, I'm working really hard on that. But the fact is that there's already pressure to move DCFS back into the sclerotic type of agency that it has been ever since AJ Friend was murdered here in 2019. And I am not happy with that. And I am not going to be quiet about that. This is my job. This is the one thing that I really care about. That and the pension problem. So you're gonna hear a lot from me about trying to ameliorate the problems that DCFS has by moving services outside the agency and into something a lot more local and a lot more responsive to the needs of people who live in this community. And if you want to work with me on that, I'm happy to have you help. My door is open. If you think that there are ideas that, and again, I urge you to read that book. Because it's a starting point. It's a starting point to something I think we can do better with. So, to your comments, I appreciate them. I'm a bipartisan guy when it comes to child welfare. And I think everybody that I work with in the legislature is the same. We can't let this continue to happen. We can't let this agency continue to just muddle on and muddle through. We need an agency that responds proactively rather than reactively. And that's what I'm trying to do.
Absolutely, I agree with that. And AJ is not the only child that
No,
was
absolutely not. There are way too
throughout
many of
Illinois,
them.
we've had cases like that of children being returned to their parents and murdered.
Yeah, exactly.
And I'm gonna kind of, because we've got to go.
I know Carol had
Representative
come in.
Weber
Thank
also
you.
is working on the issue, had legislation. Obviously, it's important to all of us. So I would just encourage you again, our reps have been extraordinarily accessible. They're always available for those conversations. So again, everyone on this committee has access. And if you want to continue to work with them, that's why they're here today, to tell us what they're working on, okay? So again, thank you very much for your time this morning. Really appreciate you driving. Thank you very much to all of you.
Thank you.
Senator, thank you.
In fact, I have an AEI meeting, Zoom meeting right now with the American Enterprise Institute on foster care.
Okay.
So I gotta get to that.
Thank you for coming.
I'm trying, that's what I'm trying to do. I'll call you.
Please.
I also have given you ISACO's legislative agenda, and the National Association of Counties also just did their legislative agenda, and we'll get that to you guys too, just so you understand what we're doing from all fronts. Moving on our agenda to new business, we have interviews this morning for the Marengo Rescue Squad District. Caryn, I saw you come in. Caryn, come on up. Caryn submitted her application. Caryn is a returning member to the squad. She's already served one term. So can you give us a little bit of background about yourself? And then also, what I've been asking since I've been chair of this committee is, kind of give us a little summary of what you've seen have been the accomplishments, some of the challenges that the squad has run into, and then anything else you think that we need to know about what's going on. Chief Kimmel is going to give us a little bit of update on what's happening as well, so I would just limit your comments, but specifically in reference to what you've done and why you're coming back, why you want to come back. So thank you, Caryn, if you would, please.
Yeah, I'm a retired registered nurse in critical care. I've lived in the county for 33 years, and I was initially on the rescue squad, like in the late 90s for a couple of years. So I kind of know how it works. Since I've been a trustee, we've gone from just like paid on call to being really more professional. We've been able to retain employees. We've been able to give them benefits. We have increased our budget by referendums, and that seemed to help a lot. We have also been able to work with intergovernmental agreements with the fire department, where we're separate from the fire department. So we've been trying to move towards working with them. One of our issues is we have like 144 square miles, and we cover both Marengo and Union fire districts. So we have been able to work really close and actually use the same chief So we're saving money because each one are paying for them. And so our goal is to try to get all of it combined and go from being a appointed trustee to elected. And that's what we'd like to do.
Anybody have any questions for Caryn? Ms. Campbell?
Explain what you mean by that, the bringing all.
Actually, Chief Kimball's going to give us
he's gonna give you the whole
synopsis, which is why he's here today.
Okay,
But
good.
yes, thank you. I appreciate that, you know,
Yes.
you laid the groundwork for some of those
Yeah.
other things.
But we've
So
been,
we'll get the whole
you
thing.
know, we've been moving along, and I've actually been on as a trustee since 2005. So we've worked really hard to try to get, you know, people to stay. And, you know, people come, and because we had such a big district, they would come and then move on to somebody else, another place, because they make more money and they have benefits. So now we're able to do that. So that's our, so I'd like to continue.
Thank you for your continued service.
All right, thank you. Any other questions? None? You can stay, we're going to deliberate and make the recommendation to the full county board, but it's up to you. Okay. Yeah, there's 3 openings and 3 people have applied, so I just, you know, it's not like we're going to have a massive deliberation.
That's true. Caryn, I don't know if you guys got the email yet, but Whitney, who was the 3rd one who was supposed to interview today, had a back injury and is home right now trying to heal up.
Okay.
So he sent an email. He is available if you want to do it on a FaceTime or Teams meeting. If we're able to send him.
Is he the alternate?
No,
Ed is the alternate.
Ed is the alternate.
Okay, all right. I'll leave that up to the committee.
Okay.
Unless
I can
maybe,
talk a
unless you
little
can,
bit
I was gonna say, unless you wanna talk to that too.
Yeah, I can talk about both.
Yeah. So let's go on to Ed, if he wants to come up.
Oh, I'm
Ed,
sorry.
come on. So alternative member to the rescue
Yes.
squad, also returning member.
Yes.
You've served in a term. So again, tell us a little bit about yourself, and then again, reasons for coming back, and then successes, challenges, those kinds of things.
Not much more I can add that Caryn hasn't already discussed as far as the challenges
That's okay
go.
too.
But I've been on as a trustee, I believe, since 2018, looking for reappointment. My background is that I worked for the McHenry County Soil and Water Conservation District for 36 years. I'm retired, and I am looking for, you know, community involvement and giving back to my community in the form of being a trustee in the Rescue Squad District.
Any questions? I've known Ed for a very long time.
Can you, the chair, just explain what it means by being an alternative?
Do you want to explain what the alternate is?
Alternate.
What is that?
An alternate, okay.
He doesn't hold a position like board president, secretary. He's a
board member, but he's not part of the executive.
Correct.
Okay,
there you go.
but is a voting board.
member.
Okay.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, thank you.
There you go.
Thank you.
Thank you. And again, Chief, you want to come up and do you want to, again, we've done this in the past and we understand that it's difficult sometimes during the day for people to come here. It was a recommendation of the chief that Mel go ahead and reapply. So he's, his reappointment is supported, or his appointment is supported by the chief as well as the rest of the board. So I don't know if you think it's necessary to have him call in, or if you want to go ahead and talk about him and why he would be good. And
Mel was a former member of the Rescue Squad District for several years. He did express an interest. I actually brought our board president, Scott Higgins, with us. Scott reached out to him and spoke with him. He's very interested. He came in and met with me just to learn about since when he was on, which was pretty much a volunteer, paid out call department, to where we're at today. He had a lot of great ideas, asked a lot of great questions. I think having somebody fresh and new in the organizations would be very good for us to bring those new ideas and opinions in. So we're excited to have him. Hopefully he gets approved, and I know that he is willing to meet at another time if you'd like, but we only have 3.
do you have any comments? from the board perspective?
I think Mel would be a great asset for us because of his knowledge and stuff. He's the one that kind of suckered me into getting on the rescue squad, you know, back in 80 something. And it was a trick thing. He brought me in and said, "Oh, we just come to the meeting and see what it's all about." Next thing I know, they voted on me. Here I am. I've been on the board for 30 years. I was 10 years as a member. So, and I think Mel's a great person, and I think he's really community oriented. So I think he'd be a great asset to our board.
Questions? Because I'm going to ask you guys to approve all three. Ms. Campbell?
Okay, so, but what I'm reading, so I'm a little confused, because then what I'm reading is that we have one term for a regular member and 2 terms for alternates, and we've got 2 people wanting regular terms and 1 person wanting an alternate. So when you're sitting here
It's
speaking
flipped.
from.
It should be flipped.
Right, it should be 2.
Caryn should be the regular member.
Well, that's what I'm
and then-
thinking.
Yeah, and it should have been 2 alternates, correct. So it's flipped on.
So Melvin would be.
It's not exactly flipped. So
Okay.
currently Caryn is a regular
Jean
member.
was.
She is the
But
regular
when she applied for the regular member.
It should be 2, because I misspoke. Jean Karashi, who's not running, was the treasurer, so that's the other position. That's the regular member position that should be open.
So it's 2 regular positions is what he's saying, rather than 1.
We show there are 3 regular members and 2 alternate members of the commission. Is that incorrect?
No, that's correct.
Okay.
However,
For this vote with the 3, for your guys' approval, it should be 1 alternate, 2 regular. Scott's our president, and then Jean Karachi, who's not running again, was the treasurer.
and one of these, and somebody will move into that position as treasurer, being the regular,
The Board of Trustees will.
and I don't think you had that.
So you're saying Eugene Karachi was a regular member?
Yes.
So that would give you 4 regular members and 1 alternate?
No, because the only other regular member should be
There's
the
4.
next.
Secretary, treasurer,
Secretary.
vice president, president.
Who am I missing?
Dick.
Oh, Dick, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Too many members, 5. So, yes, it's correct.
This is what we currently have. These were the 3 up, and these 2 are active.
Yep. And Ed is, yep, that's correct.
Okay.
Right, so we're,
So what are we doing, Kathy?
So currently, Caryn, excuse me, is a regular member and she applied for a regular member
Right.
position. Mr. Weskerna is an alternate member and applied for the alternate member position. And Mr. Whitney is new, per se, and he also applied for a regular member position. So what you see on the agenda is what they applied for.
but you're saying that our paragraph is wrong.
Excuse me, Pam?
No, it's correct.
Just a minute, please, Brian. It's correct. Okay, yes, Mr. Sagar?
Oops, we lost her.
He hit the go away button instead of the talk button.
Oh,
So again, what we're really voting on then is 2 alternate members, and you're just gonna have to notify us if one of those alternate takes the treasurer's position, and that changes, and that will come subsequent. So we are actually today recommending 1 regular and 2 alternate members. And if that changes based on officership, that'll change.
Can I make a motion?
Yes, please make a motion.
Motion for Caryn to be the regular member and Edward Weskerna and
Weskerna.
Melvin Whitney to be the alternate members.
Is there a second to that motion? Any further discussion? Seeing none, can we have a roll call vote? Sorry, Kath, I'll do it. Carolyn? Gloria?
Yes.
Michael?
Yes.
Pam, yes. And when Brian comes back on, it's done. So we will make those recommendations to the full board for formal action, okay? And then again, I would ask, Chief, when the officership, when you do that, you notify Kathy immediately and she can change and we can fill that other
That'll be, it's
position.
on our agenda for January.
Okay,
So that'll be this month.
okay.
So you still have it coming up?
Yep,
Okay.
yep, next week.
We're getting a lot of mileage out of January.
So Michael had to step out and is taking a phone call. Hopefully Brian comes back, but I think what he was doing is interrupting to say he had to hang up. But what I want to do is, you heard from some of the board member applicants that some of the issues that the rescue squad has been dealing with is working collaboratively with the Marengo Fire and Union Fire. There has been some further discussion about consolidating Marengo Rescue with Marengo Fire, changing lots of things. That would also do an election of the board as opposed to our appointment of the board. I asked Chief and President, Scott, I'm gonna do this again, I forgot your last name.
Higgins.
Jeez, I was gonna say Himmel. President Higgins to kind of give us some background, and then what I am looking for from you is permission to allow them to work with our state's attorney to ensure that what we're doing is appropriate and getting the ballot question, and then to keep us in the loop. Harvard had a referendum question that failed miserably. I would ask that you come to us and we have some resources that you might be able to tap into. Certainly we can't take a position, but we have people who will assist you making that possibility a reality. So if you could just again tell the members what's going on kind of and where we can move from, from this particular.
So I brought our decennial committee report and passed that around. So just to kind of give you a little bit of background. We kind of giggled when we got it because when you talk about efficiency, I think what Marengo Rescue and Marengo Fire are doing is kind of exactly what they're looking for. What we've done is we share a chief, we share staff. So if you're a member of the Marengo Fire Department, you're also a member of the Marengo Rescue Squad. We've changed ordinances around and training requirements so that they mirror each other. We have a very large intergovernmental agreement between the two districts right now. What that did for us is try to retain employees. What they want is the downstate pension. Well, for the rescue squad, they don't qualify as a rescue squad member to be in the downstate pension. So what we did for our full-time employees is the rescue, we have an intergovernmental agreement where all of our full-time employees are on the Marengo Fire Protection District roster. The rescue squad district reimburses them for those employee costs for their portion of the employees. So that way we can put them into the downstate pension, with the goal being consolidation in the future. The issue is with consolidation for us is with Marengo Fire and Marengo Rescue, if we were to combine and consolidate, we would lose potentially the Union Fire District, that tax base, which is about $235,000. The best choice and best option for us would be to consolidate all three. Well, as you can imagine, when you're trying to consolidate anything, there's going to be hurdles, and a lot of those hurdles are, I would say, personal agendas versus what's best for the community. And we're working. We actually have our first meeting scheduled with the Union Fire District. We've been trying for about 9 months to get a joint meeting put together. I've talked to their chief quite a few times, and I think we're going to get there. We have a meeting scheduled for January 28th. That would be the first meeting with all three boards to start this discussion. I think that, and when we look at that in the consolidation and why it's good for our communities, and then there's other communities in McHenry County that it could benefit as well, is it standardizes our response. There's no tax break, but there's no tax increase to any of our members or any of our citizens. So,
do any of the bodies have any debt whatsoever? Or are you guys all free and clear? Because that makes it complicated then too.
It does, the debt part of it, but the debt that the districts are carrying are equipment loans through the state fire marshal on a grant. Yeah. So those are like 20-year zero interest loans. There's no debt on buildings or anything like that. So essentially, yes, we're debt free, but when we looked at it, it's getting harder and harder to find. Personnel is a big issue right now across the United States. In McHenry County, if you look at job postings, it's a fight to see who can pay more to draw these people. And for a smaller department in McHenry County, we can consolidate. If we consolidate with Union, you're taking a fire department that has 0 staffed people. We have 2 people in Union right now, Marengo Fire, Marengo Rescue. We call it our Station 3, which is over there. We have a firefighter paramedic, full-time firefighter paramedic over there, and at least a minimum of a firefighter EMT with that person. So with consolidation, we could very easily add a third person over there, and that's an ambulance-only company that's currently there. But if we added the third person, we could do what's called a jump company. We could staff an engine. Union's budget's about $235,000, which is what we bring in from union. So essentially, all of that money would then go into payroll, because it's gonna cost more for a full-time person than what their budget is. So we're hoping that, they can see that it's good for their members. It's gonna give their members going from volunteer to potentially being able to work shifts and get paid to do this job. There's a town, Manhattan, Illinois, recently went through this, through consolidation, and it worked very well for them. They're actually doing a presentation at the Neighbors Conference this year about consolidation. So we're hoping that that's where we're going. We're also working with the Harvard Fire Protection District. I'm the chief up there, considered part-time, but they have an intergovernmental agreement with them. It was originally 6 months, it's been 2 years, and now it's gonna go till May of 26, right?
I'm sorry, where's that out of again? It was right.
Harvard.
Okay.
Yep.
That's one of the areas that, remember, we heard, and they had finally hired a chief to help organize and get that.
Yeah, things are going much better up there, but, again, when it comes to consolidation, I would not throw Harvard into that mix right now, because we are trying to pass a referendum. We're gonna try again this year to pass a referendum. But because of the rules with the state and legislature, we could potentially lose money if we consolidated, because we would have to take the average of the two tax rates, the two levy amounts, and Harvard is so low that could really throw it off, and that could cause a real problem, considering we have full-time employees that are depending on us to maintain our budgets, and we don't want to have to lay anybody off.
We should actually look at legislation for that. So all I'm looking for at this, and we thank you, I mean, honestly, for the collaboration with other departments, and then again, for coming up with the idea. I would just like to offer them some resources. I would ask you when you have those meetings, if not me, someone from the county should also kind of be there to talk about how to do this and how to help and move forward. Not that we would guide you, we would be, partners. So if it's okay with you, that's something I'm going to offer, and I will make sure that they contact you, and we can talk about what the next steps are, how to do that, how to write that ballot, whatever it is, and some of the concerns that might be out there.
Yeah, I would think the first initial meeting, we just kind of want to, because there's a lot of old school, past hurt feelings and things that we're going to have to work through before we actually start making some
And I'm serious, the other part of this is maybe we can have one of our legislators, you heard them here today, maybe one of them can carry legislation that say under some, these kinds of conditions, we don't have to take an average. Maybe, just
right now
get
for
it through
Marengo, it's good because we're all at the same rate. It's when you throw Harvard into that.
Right. Well, what about Union?
They're at the same rate as us.
They're at the same rate, okay.
Because it's different because they get an EMS tax. So if you look at Harvard gets a corporate amount, and then they get an ambulance amount, an EMS amount. So they can go up to the 0.8 threshold. The 3 districts we're talking about with Marengo Union, we only get one side of that. So we get the corporate side and not the EMS side as the fire district, and then same, flipped for rescue. So we get 0.4, they get 0.4, but if you put them all together, you're at that 0.8, and you're good. So we wouldn't have to take an average at that point, because it wouldn't change anything for the citizens. They'd pay the same amount.
Which would make it easier to move forward. So again, that's all I'm gonna say is, let's work together. So if we ultimately can make a decision to do this, that we're all working to the same end, because I would agree with you, I think it's on the best interest of the people that we all serve.
Definitely.
Okay, thank you.
I just have a question. What do you see as your greatest obstacle in consolidating the 3 units?
There's I would say history. We need to get over that stuff.
Okay, this is the way we've always done it,
yeah,
kind of
and
mentality?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, as far as working together on actual scenes is great. We have a great relationship. They got really good people, and so do we, and we work really well together in that aspect.
Okay.
It was hard when the rescue and fire and Marengo got together, because there's egos and stuff, and it was difficult to get past that, but we managed, and it's working great now.
And then consolidating the boards is difficult because
Right.
nobody wants to give up their kind of control.
No, I kind of looked at it, and this is, something I'm gonna ask is, there's members that want to stay and there's members that are getting ready to retire.
To
and not
retire
ready.
anyway, so maybe this is a good
So it
time.
would be a great time because there's 5 of them that really want to stick around and there's several that don't, and it would probably be a 5-person board, so that would work out. Those that want to retire, they retire.
But those are the kinds of questions
Yeah.
too, we can work out and make sure we're doing it all correctly. So we really appreciate that. And the only reason is because we appoint the people who are gonna make the decision about whether to consolidate or not, right?
Yeah,
So-
and so, and actually, if there's ever a meeting that's more of a public meeting, that would be helpful, because maybe, time permitting, we can show up and listen and get better informed, but I don't know when those happen, so if
So
you're
the
able.
first one is January 28th.
You did say the 28th, so, you know, if those can be
I'll
sent.
remind,
Yeah.
I'll remind.
And they're all public meetings, so.
Right. I
So
mean,
they'll post it.
so, perfect.
Great. So the consensus is we'll put everybody in touch, we'll work together and we'll move forward. So thank you very much for taking the
Thank you.
time. I really appreciate you guys being here.
Any
Thank you.
questions?
Thank you.
And Brian has joined us just in time to move on to the next item on our agenda, which is the transit funding. And we got a lot of information from our legislators. You know, maybe if you can kind of summarize and put us on the path of where it is we're gonna go. I just wanted you to get a full kind of update on what is happening from all sides. So, Mr. Sagar, can I give you the floor, please?
Sure, thanks, Chair. The first thing I wanted to have is.
You're breaking up a little bit, Bri.
All right,
You're breaking up. We can hear about every third word.
all right, well, I'm gonna turn.
Sometimes the phone.
Is this any better or not?
Yeah. Yes, better.
Okay, good, thank you. I would just say that the document that is before us on our agenda is really a document that, and read.
Brian, get closer to the mic again. It's bad again. When you back up, it seems to lose connection.
Okay, is that better?
Yes.
All right, great. Start over again quickly. The document that you have before us on our, really a document that's been developed within the executive board of the COG. It is going to be presented to the membership of the COG at the coming membership meeting for their overall consideration. But it's also important to understand that the document that we have together is one that we use in our discussion.
Brian, this isn't working any longer. Again, we can't hear you. It's
too breaking up.
Yeah, it's very garbled. I apologize. I don't know if you want to relocate.
Or call from the phone and call in.
Yeah, or call from a phone.
Call from your phone.
Okay, I can call from the phone if you want to just give me the number.
Can I do it on my phone?
Yeah.
Can I do it? Call my phone. I'll put you on speaker.
Okay, I'll call your phone. Good, thanks. I'm hanging up here.
Okay.
There's a phone number on the link I sent you.
Or Brian, there's also a phone number on the link that you, no, never mind, use my phone.
He left.
I think he was joining from a phone, where if he.
Oh, that could be, yeah, I think he's at his
iPad.
dad's, which is out. Okay,
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
we can hear you now.
All right, very good. I'll go back and say that the document that you have before us is a document that has been developed by the executive board of McHenry County COG. This is going to be presented to the membership at the legislative meeting, which is going to be coming up. And in doing so, we would then be using this as a part of our efforts in lobbying in Springfield. The intent of bringing it forward to this committee and then hopefully to the county board is to kind of get our consensus that yes, we support this particular effort in terms of our lobbying approaches. The COG itself is going to be heading down to Springfield the 4th, 5th, and 6th of February. So we're just a little bit behind here, but we certainly wanted to get you all's opinions about this. It's also important to understand that this document has been communicated through Shaylin and through Rick Mack to other county COGs and we hope then therefore to their boards so that they're understanding, so that we can take a unified approach to our lobbying efforts in Springfield. So the focus here is lobbying. Now I want to step back away from this document, and I want to say that the RTA board is going to be this month, actually on the same day as our cow, is going to be considering a resolution that is going to be one of two resolutions. The first resolution is to address and to meet the needs of many legislators in terms of what are we going to do as an RTA board if we have the oversight responsibilities and authority which we are requesting in terms of the new governance structure, to be able to impact the service boards and agencies. What are we going to do to affect efficiencies? And what are we going to do to be able to control costs? And so that is the first resolution that is going to be before, again, the RTA board this coming Thursday. In addition to that, there will be a second one that will follow up that will address more the questions about governance and the import that has been identified by Senator DeWitt this morning, that we all want to make sure that we have good representation, that the service agency boards are retained to provide that representation and input, and further, that as we look to the RTA, we're going to be looking at greater maintenance of the supermajority voting requirements so that we can especially oversight such things as annual budgets, 2-year financial plan, 5-year capital program, 5-year strategic plan, and issues of accountability. Right now, we don't have that authority, and so we want to maintain that authority in the RTA board with a supermajority vote so that there is a balance between the Collier counties and the Cook representatives and the Chicago representatives. The other thing that this document does is to address some of the concerns by CMAP, which had to do with representation on the board of RTA, and that was that we're looking at increasing the RTA membership by supporting, if this is the direction the legislature wishes to go, appointments by the governor, a representative from metropolitan region that would be, from the Cook County area, one from Chicago area, and one from the Collier counties, again, appointed by the governor if the governor so chooses. So we're trying to accommodate some joint needs of expression to increase participation on the RTA board. We're also looking at some non-voting members, which are identified there as well. I'm not going to go into detail of that, but you can see that there. And then the last portion of that document is McHenry County Council of Governments supports. And so in this particular instance, we're going to take this portion. It's going to be kind of a little half card, if you will, that's going to be laminated. Our speakers, our representatives, whether it's Joyce Narduli or others, will have these available, not only for our use in talking to our legislators in Springfield, but also to kind of pass out and leave behind, if you will. It's important to note that in that, we are also agreeing, basically, that we would be willing to support an increased RTA sales tax to provide additional portion of funding, that we understand the need to do that, to give the legislatures a recognition of the fact that we are, as representatives of the Collier County, willing to look at additional funding revenues through a mix, but that mix could include an increase in the RTA tax. So that's the document that is before you. That's the effort now, because this will then be part of a second resolution by the RTA board that will be forwarded in detail to Springfield to help everyone understand that we're looking at this in two forms. The first is that, yes, we are willing to acknowledge the fact that there needs to be some adjustments and some changes, that we are willing to support the revenue enhancements which are going to be necessary for the $1.5 billion infusion on an annual basis into the transit budget.
But in addition to that, we want to make sure that we all understand that we're also going to be looking at efficiencies as we can. So it's a dual approach here. I'll be happy to answer any questions that you might have or thoughts that you might have with regards to this document or the approach we can take.
And Brian, I've also asked Peter Austin and Shailene Daigle to come up to the table to talk a little bit too, just so you know that they're up here. My only question would be is, do you know who you have designated as lobbying on those days, who you're gonna see? What legislators?
We do not yet, no. Joyce is working on a schedule for us, so.
And I'm assuming, knowing her and knowing how well she is at this, that there will be people from the transportation and people who were from the, just again, so that there's a tie-in. Do you have anything to add from what Brian, I know he's
Brian
so
did a
good.
fantastic job. I just want to share that this document was shared with all of the councils of governments last week, and we are meeting today at 3:30 to go over this document as well. So the goal is to get buy-in from all of the councils of government on this. So to allude to Senator DeWitt's comment of getting everybody speaking from the same document, that's the goal, so.
And you know, again, open questions. In a list of priorities that McCog has with regard to legislation, where does this one fall?
I would say number one, but after hearing the LGDF conversation, it might be second. It's tied. So
I think personally, I would say it's our number one. It's once again, everything being pushed down to a local level that all of a sudden becomes our major responsibility for funding, all of it.
Absolutely.
Because that's what they're doing too, even with the RTA. Recognizing some of it has to happen, but you know, again, all of it is we don't want to deal with it at the state level, so we're just, again, pushing everything down to the locals. You come up with a new tax for RTA, you come up with some, you know, funding, because we're going to take your local government distributive money away. Anyway.
Can I just ask, has this
Yeah,
document
please.
been distributed? Did we get it?
It's in your agenda.
In the agenda, okay, then I just didn't get down to it, sorry about that.
Thank you.
Yeah. And many organizations and Scott Hennings at the DOT has been fantastic with this. So we have really mulled over every word and phrase, and I think it's a fantastic document, and hopefully the COGS will buy in on it as well.
And are we also sharing it, obviously, with the county, other county board chairs?
They are all, I mean,
You've done that already?
Yeah.
Okay.
And a lot of things running around.
Yeah.
There is an expectation that there is, another bill coming.
Oh, I would
released
assume.
this week. And labor has been kind of the one out front of our, so these points I think are gonna be.
I can't really hear the additional discussion, but
Pete said he thought another bill was coming forward.
I was on the phone on Friday with Lake County representatives who had been on the phone earlier that day with DuPage County representatives, and the suggestion is that a bill would be coming this week, drafted by labor, but these points would be covered in there.
Right.
Thank you.
What I'm hoping is that we would be willing to put this on the county board's agenda if the chair is so inclined, so that we can just recognize the fact that we have supported buy-in by the county board as a whole.
The reason for my call with Lake County last week was just that. They were calling to see if we were going to vote on something. And,
a resolution.
Well, yeah. My answer was, I don't think so. I don't know that to be the case. If we are of the mind, we certainly have time to do that yet. And I felt like we had kind of gotten everyone generally on board with these points already.
So,
but certainly
Brian,
could pass.
what I would ask is.
I had that on my agenda for this afternoon with the chair.
With the chairman, that's exactly what I was gonna say. Let's run it by the chairman, and then we can have a discussion.
Lake County Chair Hart is heading a board that's, I think, more split on what is the right approach. And their staff was kind of saying we need to get the board to vote on something, because
So they had a position, so the board themselves had a position. I would feel more comfortable with that too, quite frankly. I also think it gives our legislators, as Rep. Wright stated, when you have a resolution from something, it's a little bit more significant than just a comment that, we support, because there is a difference between chairman and the board. So I think that just makes it easier for them to say there is definitive board support for this. So
I don't think it's really difficult to translate this outline document, if you will, into a resolution. I think that could be readily done. It's just a matter of getting the chair on board with providing the resolution to the county board for consideration.
I agree. We'll talk to the chairman about it, and the consensus would be is if he is in agreement, we'll draft something for consideration.
Sure. You can have it on Thursday, post on Friday.
Okay, great. And anything else on this issue?
I would say thank you. I know that everybody has heard this almost to ad nauseum, and so I apologize for that, but it's really, really an essential effort on our behalf, and it is now.
I agree. I think that educating people about where we are and how it's moving forward is extraordinarily important, particularly as we all have different contact with our own constituencies. So we appreciate it, Brian. Thank you. Really. No executive session is necessary. Can I have a motion to adjourn? Ms. Campbell, Ms. Van Hoff, all those in favor say aye. Aye. We're done. Thank you.